As with most things in 2020, the IndyCar Silly season is yet another thing that has just been wildly unpredictable. Who could have guessed, say, 5 years ago, that Jimmie Johnson would be a full-time IndyCar driver for Chip Ganassi Racing? If you told anybody that, you probably would have been thrown in a mental asylum. It just happens to be what this year has been. Not to mention Scott McLaughlin coming over from the V8 Supercar Series to race full-time for Team Penske. This video, we will talk about many of the unconfirmed and unfilled seats in the 2021 IndyCar Series. We'll also break down which seats are filled and which drivers are officially set to return or make their debuts next year in IndyCar. Anything that is unconfirmed or a rumor or speculation on my part will be clearly marked. Anything that is unmarked, you can consider as 100% going to happen. All right, let's get into it. Let's talk about which seats are available and which seats are not in the 2021 NTT IndyCar Series. All right, let's start with the big teams, the heavy hitters in IndyCar racing, and we've got a pretty good idea where most of those seats are going to land. Andretti Autosport is expected to return with 5 full-time entries in next year's IndyCar Series. This is not counting the potential 1 to 2 entries Andretti usually enters at the Indy 500 Extra. Alexander Rossi has been re-signed to the team. That was old news from last year, as well as Colton Herta. No real surprises there. Marco Andretti, he owns his own car, and there's been nothing to indicate that he's going to retire or cut back at this time. And Ryan Hunter-Reay has recently been confirmed to be re-signed with the team and his sponsor, DHL. So Ryan Hunter-Reay was one seat that we thought was going to change, and he has not changed seats. He is staying at Andretti, and quite frankly, that's a good thing. The one unconfirmed seat is, frankly, one that I can pretty much confirm to you is going to be James Hinchcliffe in the number 26 car. Now, what the sponsorship arrangement for that car will be, it's unclear. As of right now, I'm sure that announcement is coming. My guess would be a primary sponsor from Genesis, which was his sponsor at the Indy 500, maybe a secondary from Gainbridge. We'll just kind of have to see how Andretti arranges their sponsors. There's a rumor that maybe Colton Herta would be driving the Gainbridge car next year. We'll just kind of have to see how the money and the sponsorship is allocated for next year, but expect James Hinchcliffe to be filling that 5th seat. Team Penske, this is a team that's completely 100% confirmed. Lock it in. These are the 4 drivers for the full season. Joseph Newgarden, the most recent winner in IndyCar racing, unfortunately was usurped from his title by Scott Dixon at the end of the year, but you know he's going to be trying to get that number 1 back on his car. Will Power, one of the old stalwarts in the series at this point. It's amazing that drivers who were rookies in 2006 were now talking about being the old guys in the series, but that's how it goes. Simon Pagenaud had a bit of an off year, but once again re-signed to the team. And, of course, the major signing for Team Penske, and a guy who you got to think is going to factor in to the series at large next year, and certainly is going to help with the international interest, is Scott McLaughlin driving the number 3 car, taking that full-time and away from Helio Castroneves. But Helio fans, we've got some good news for you later on in this video. But Penske's totally locked in. These are the 4 drivers, and there has been nothing to suggest they will be adding any more cars for the Indy 500, so this is it for the whole season. Chip Ganassi Racing, another fairly easy one because they've confirmed most of their drivers. The easiest one, perhaps, to confirm is that, yes, indeed, IndyCar champion Scott Dixon will return for next year. A pretty surprising addition to the team was Alex Palou, who will be taking over the number 10 car, which was vacated by Felix Rosenqvist, who's moving over to McLaren for next year. Of course, Palou is in his second year, moving over from the Dale Coyne racing team. Marcus Ericsson will be returning to Ganassi Racing as well. It will be interesting to see what he can do in his second year for the team. And of course, one of the big ones, especially the biggest one in terms of American racing fans, Jimmie Johnson will be running the road courses for Chip Ganassi Racing in the number 48 Carvana entry. Now, the one thing that is unconfirmed as of right now is who will be in the 48 car on the oval tracks. But pretty much every legitimate source out there, and I have no reason to doubt that, though I don't have any of my own personal information as to whether this is a confirmation or not, which is why I'm going to leave it as unconfirmed, is Tony Kanaan racing in the number 48 car, at least for the Indy 500, and more likely than not for all of the ovals next year. Again, it's unconfirmed as of right now, but there really doesn't seem to be anything else to suggest that anyone but Kanaan would be in the Jimmie Johnson car on the ovals. Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan racing. There's two really easy confirmations here, and then one we're going to have to talk about. Obviously, Graham Rahal, the namesake of the team, he's probably not going anywhere, and he's definitely not going anywhere this year. Graham Rahal, lock him in. Takuma Sato also re-signed with the team. He's the Indy 500 champion. You wouldn't want to break up that team, obviously, to be able to go on the streak that they have, especially at the Indy 500. And if Sato can really kind of rein in some of his tendencies to crash, he may be a championship contender next year. We'll just kind of have to see if the old dog can learn new tricks. The big factor here at Rahal is that apparently, yes, they will be running a third car. It's unclear if this will be a full season entry. As of right now, my understanding is it is a partial season, around 6 races deal. Now, they have been testing Antonio Felix da Costa, the Formula E champion, and this seems like the direction. I mean, obviously they wouldn't test the guy if they didn't have plans for him, you would think. So if it's not da Costa for all of the races, you got to think that Spencer Pigot may be in line there. But this is certainly one that I feel confident enough. At the very least, the 45 car will be seen next year, likely a sizable portion of the season, if not the full season. And given what we've seen from the indications that Rahal has given putting da Costa in the seat, I would imagine that da Costa is the guy who is the front runner to take that seat for the majority of the time that car is on the track next year. Meyer Shank Racing. This one got locked in just yesterday, and we know where both cars are going to be, where and when both cars are going to be racing for this team next year. The full season entrant, no real surprise there. It's Jack Harvey. They have been working very well together the last few years, and Harvey's really helped to build that team up into a full season contender and really showed some real pace last year. And he's going to get some help at 6 rounds next year from Helio Castroneves, who will be the oldest driver kind of consistently in the series for 6 races next year, including the Indianapolis 500. Now, Meyer Shank Racing purchased the Dragon Speed chassis. Dragon Speed will not be back next year, and so that presumably is one of the cars that Helio Castroneves will be using. And you've got to imagine that having 2 cars with 2 data points at several races next year, again, including that Indy 500, you got to think that Shank is going to step up massively next year with this added investment. There were a couple other drivers involved in potentially joining that team, including Oliver Askew. They went with Castroneves. You got to think one of the factors there is also that IMSA sports car program that they've taken on with the Acura prototype, where Castroneves has experience with that car and will get them up to speed fairly quickly. Yes, it wouldn't be a silly season without McLaren factoring in a pretty sizable portion of the drama. Now, Patricio Award, that's an easy confirmation. They seem extremely happy with his performance last year, and of course his points, scoring ability, and if he can start winning races, Award may well be a championship contender next year. McLaren obviously got rid of Oliver Askew, and they've brought in Felix Rosenqvist, coming over from the Ganassi team. That's one that was confirmed just recently, even though it's been rumored for quite a while. And Felix is going to be an interesting watch next year, especially being teammates with Patricio Award. I've mentioned that there could be some sparks flying next year in the McLaren operation. We'll just have to see how things go. And McLaren has been pretty adamant that they want to add a third car, if not for the full season, but for a partial season like many of these teams are doing when they add cars. We have, quite honestly, no idea who is going to take that seat. There really hasn't been any credible rumors as of recent times. Conventional wisdom would have had you believe that Helio Castroneves was going to get that ride, but of course he's gone over to Shank. So I'll throw out a couple of names here, and these are complete speculation, though we know there's at least some interest from one of these drivers. How about a Kevin Magnussen? He mentioned that he would consider coming over to the States to race an IndyCar. He has McLaren connections, obviously. He drove for them in Formula One. If he gets along with Zach Brown, which as far as I'm aware, there's not any kind of animosity between those two parties, this would seem like a pretty decent choice. If not for the full season, then at least for a couple of races, which seems like that's what McLaren would probably do with the 66 car. For the Indy 500, though, why not go with Juan Pablo Montoya? And certainly the case can be made there because even in the photo you're seeing, he's wearing a United Autosports uniform. That's Zach Brown's kind of personal team. So we know for a fact Montoya not only has that McLaren connection from Formula One, but also has the Zach Brown connection. And now that Castroneves is out of the picture, and you wouldn't expect Montoya to be back in sports cars, at least on the United States side, why would you let a two-time Indy 500 winner sit on the sidelines, especially if you're McLaren, and you could get some serious press by including him? I think Montoya may be another driver they're considering, but again, speculation. Nothing is suggesting that they're doing this as of right now. AJ Foyt Racing. Sebastian Bourdais was confirmed there fairly late into the season, and of course he actually stepped into the team, essentially starting his full-time career back up with the Indy GP or the Harvest GP and St. Pete at the end of the year, and will continue all the way through the 2021 season. It's good to see him back after sitting out almost an entire year. And there's 2 more seats at Foyt that potentially could be filled, but they are unconfirmed as of right now. Of course, the 4 and the 41 car. There's really nothing to suggest that any other drivers right now are interested in those seats outside of Charlie Kimball and Dalton Kellett, and both are on record saying that they would like to be back at Foyt in a full season capacity. So I have no reason to believe that they won't be back at that team in some capacity next year. Now, whether it's a ride split or a ride share with a third car at the Indy 500, who knows at this point, but you've got to think that Bourdais getting them the leader circle money for the 14 car at St. Petersburg helped Foyt's budget significantly in terms of bringing cars to the grid next year. So I would not be surprised in the least bit if Foyt has 3 cars on the grid next year for a sizable portion of the season. In keeping with tradition, Dale Coyne Racing is pretty much one that's completely up in the air as to who's going to drive for them. The closest one to a confirmation, though, at the moment, it's unconfirmed, and apparently he was shopping his talents around to other teams, is Santino Ferrucci. As of right now, it looks like he will return to the number 18 Coyne Vassar Sullivan operation. He has had some pretty decent success with that team recently, and I think Dale would be wise to keep him on as the team leader if he can. And the 55 car, or I guess we'll just call it the second Dale Coyne car, because who knows if the 55 number will stick around for next year or not. This one's completely up in the air, and so this is where we kind of break out the speculation gun once again and start talking about and start firing wildly into the air. Because generally speaking, Dale Coyne needs money, he needs a pay driver, and you could start looking in junior formula, maybe Indy Lights, to see who could jump into that seat. I'm going to throw a name out there, see if it sticks. Romain Grosjean. He has stated pretty adamantly that he would be interested in an IndyCar career, and yes, I know I put both of the Haas drivers, or the former Haas drivers, on the grid provisionally, but I don't see why not. And I think Grosjean is almost kind of the driver that a Dale Coyne would like. And I think Grosjean would enjoy being competitive. And I think he probably would be competitive if he were to jump into an IndyCar seat. He likely brings enough funding to at least get Dale most of the way to a full season. That would seem like a good fit. Again, speculation on that one. There's nothing to suggest that Romain Grosjean is going to Coyne, but I think that would be a good fit. Ed Carpenter Racing. This one's a little bit easier than most of the teams. Rinus VeeKay was re-signed to that team. VeeKay is the Rookie of the Year for the IndyCars last year. He's really came on strong at the end of the season. Ed was wise to keep him in the team. And there's been nothing to indicate that Ed Carpenter will not return on the oval tracks next year in the number 20, the namesake of the team. Again, makes a lot of sense. Now, for the road courses in the Indy 500, the third car, it is up in the air right now. There's nothing to confirm this yet, but I think the I guess we'll call it unconfirmed, would be Connor Daly returning to that seat. I think everybody involved wants it to happen. It's just going to come down to sponsorship. Does the Air Force return? And if the Air Force doesn't return, what does Connor Daly do? So as of right now, I would pencil in Connor Daly, but knowing Connor Daly's career, it seems like a lot of times he ends up on the short end of the stick, so we never can fully confirm it until it's announced. And finally, Carlin Racing. They are a team that is really stuck around in some trying times, and that's certainly good. There's potential that they could have 2 cars on the grid next year. They certainly intended to do that this year. The pandemic kind of hurt that, but I think they have a better chance this year. We'll just have to see. Again, who knows? But as of right now, at least for the 59 car, you've got to imagine that Max Chilton will return. There's really been nothing to indicate that he wouldn't come back. So you would think he's the road courses plus Indy 500 driver for the 59 car. And then, the performances that Connor Daly did in that car on the oval tracks, scoring a pole position at Iowa Speedway and looking really strong at places like Texas. Why not? I don't think they would have any problem with bringing Daly back again. Anything that involving Connor Daly, you kind of need to write in pencil, but I would also probably call Connor Daly at the 59 car as unconfirmed. 31 car, I would say this one's a lot more touch and go with Carlin Racing, though Trevor Carlin has mentioned that he has intentions to run a second car next year, and I really couldn't see anybody else in this seat other than Felipe Nasr, who tested so well for them in the offseason, was intending on racing with them in St. Petersburg. Didn't happen. Nasr himself has mentioned he wants to come back to IndyCar full-time next year. This seems like the logical continuation of what he started in 2020. So I would think for 2021, if Felipe Nasr is on the grid, as of right now, again, unconfirmed speculation, I would say, Felipe Nasr in the 31. All right, so that's where things stand as of right now for the 2021 IndyCar Series. Let me know what you think of where anybody's going, or what wild or random speculation do you have for the seats that are unconfirmed or completely open. Let me know down in the comment section below. And I guess one more thing, if you watch this whole video, let me know how many cars you think will be on the Indy 500 entry list. Do you think we'll have bumping next year? Let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube, and I will see you in the next video. Subscribe for more motorsport content.